Here are 8 reasons why communism will never work. Number 1, no motivation. Humans are driven by self-interest. In capitalism, people can work hard to achieve what they want, whether that's a big house, a private yacht, fame, or a pretty girlfriend. Most importantly, people thrive on competition. In communism, there is no competition, which means little incentive for improvement, hard work, and risk-taking fuel progress. Not a system where everyone is forced to work for the collective good. And let's not ignore the last resort, propaganda. Communist governments rely on propaganda to keep citizens in line because without it, no one would work for the collective. But the truth is, propaganda only covers up the real issue for so long until people eventually see through the lies, and then the whole system starts to crumble. If you think that's the worst of it, remember that we're just getting started, and some of these reasons you may have not even thought of. Number 2, centralized planning mistakes. Central planning is doomed because it simply can't handle real-world complexities. When governments try to control an entire economy, they lack the flexibility and local insight that businesses naturally possess. A central authority will never balance supply and demand as effectively as a free market, which is why planned economies are plagued by shortages and waste. Bureaucrats, not market forces, make the decisions, resulting in overproduction or underproduction, with bloated administrations that drain resources and smother innovation. Just look at examples like Venezuela or North Korea, where government intervention has made everyday necessities rare luxuries. This isn't theoretical, it's a recurring pattern in every centrally planned system. Even if centralized planning sounds bad on paper, history proves communism is doomed in practice. Number 3, communism has never worked. Time and again, communism has failed, not in theory, but in harsh reality. The Soviet Union couldn't even keep basic goods on store shelves, forcing people to queue endlessly for bread. Maoist China's disastrous policies, like the Great Leap Forward, unleashed one of the deadliest famines in history. Communism promises equality, yet it only ends up concentrating power in the hands of a few while the masses suffer. Those regimes didn't just collapse economically. They crushed dissent, imprisoning or executing anyone brave enough to challenge the system. The result was widespread suffering, poverty, and death. And before you claim that China is thriving under communism, remember that its mixed ideology is far from the pure form seen in these historical failures. But the devastation doesn't stop at the macro level. It hits the very fields where people live and work. Number 4, farming state-controlled agriculture isn't just inefficient, it's catastrophic. Communist regimes force collectivization, stripping farmers of land and crushing their drive to produce. The outcome? Massive food shortages, economic ruin, and famines that claimed millions of lives in places like the Soviet Union and China. Inexperienced bureaucrats dictated policies that ignored farming realities, leading to mismanagement that decimated crop yields and livestock production. Farmers lost their urge to innovate, and the collapse of local food economies forced governments to rely on imports. As if messing up food production wasn't enough, government overreach in every sphere only deepens the crisis. Number 5, overdependence on government. When the government takes control of everything, it transforms into a bloated, clumsy machine that can't keep up with reality. Centralized power causes decision-making to slow to a crawl, with endless red tape stifling any form of innovation. When the state manages everything, from businesses to welfare programs, resources are squandered, services collapse, and the economy grinds to a halt. Industries become stagnant, unable to respond to changes, and what could be fixed locally turns into a nationwide disaster. This overdependence leaves citizens with fewer choices and an economy doomed to free fall. And when the state's power goes unchecked, equality turns into something entirely different. Number 6, equally oppressed. Communism's promise of equality is a cruel joke. In reality, it creates the perfect environment for corruption. With all the power centralized in a few hands, those in charge are free to line their own pockets without any accountability. Without the threat of being ousted, corrupt officials run amok, enriching themselves while the masses suffer. Instead of leveling the playing field, the system breeds an elite class that thrives on the misery of everyone else. Rather than fostering fairness, communism entrenches power and deepens the divide between the rulers and the ruled. If unchecked power breeds corruption, then its impact on wealth redistribution is equally grim. Number 7, ineffective redistribution. Redistribution under communism is a disaster in practice. Instead of reducing inequality, it ends up widening the gap between the rich and the poor. Resources meant for the needy are lost in a maze of government mismanagement and red tape. Rather than addressing poverty directly, these programs foster a sense of entitlement that discourages hard work and innovation. The state takes from the productive and hands it to those who then lose the drive to improve, leading to a stagnant economy where promises of equality evaporate while power remains firmly in the hands of a privileged few. Beyond economics, deep cultural roots make communist change nearly impossible. Number 8. Anti-communist tradition. Many societies are so deeply rooted in capitalism that communism is simply an alien concept. Capitalism isn't just an economic system, it's a cultural cornerstone built over centuries on private ownership, individual freedom, and personal success. When a country tries to impose communism, these ingrained beliefs spark protests, civil disobedience, and outright rejection of the system. People raised on the promise of hard work leading to success are not going to willingly accept a system that suppresses individual achievement. Moreover, communism often clashes with religious and cultural values that cherish individual freedom and family. For those who have flourished under capitalism, a government-controlled economy feels like an assault on their very way of life, fueling constant friction and deep divisions within society. In the end, these 8 points expose why communism is destined to fail.